Emma just wanted 5 minutes to rest, with her baby in her arms. She sat on a park bench, trying just for a moment to forget the tough life she was living. That's when she saw the boy alone, quietly sobbing. She didn't think twice. Even exhausted, she welcomed him with open arms, offered kind words, and sat there with him, like someone holding the weight of the world in one hand. What Emma didn't know was that her small act of kindness was being silently watched by a pair of eyes that had almost given up on goodness. The man watching from a distance was the boy's father, a powerful CEO, a widower, and in that moment, something inside him broke too. She was just a poor little girl from the outskirts of Seattle, scarred by abandonment and the daily fight to survive. He was a man who thought he'd seen it all until he saw Emma. What started as an unlikely encounter would soon become a reunion no one saw coming, between two souls who had known each other in childhood, and whom fate had torn apart before love could ever bloom. But is love and starting over even possible when the past comes knocking? Hey ... are you okay? Emma's voice was soft, but steady, as she knelt in front of the boy sitting alone on the park bench. He didn't answer, curled up, his eyes red from crying. He hugged his knees tight. Emma adjusted Lily in her arms, who was letting out little whimpers, maybe from hunger or sleep. Hand reached out to the boy. Are you here all by yourself? Where's your mom or dad? The boy hesitated, then whispered, my dad said he was going to the car, but he didn't come back. Emma glanced around, her heart tightening. There wasn't a single adult nearby who looked like they belonged to him. That familiar urge kicked in, the same one she always felt when she saw someone in pain. No matter how tired she was, no matter how little she had, she could never turn away. It's okay, we'll wait here together, all right. He's probably on his way back. She sat beside him, balancing Lily in one arm while gently rubbing the boy's back with the other. He started to calm down, as if just having someone near made all the difference. And there, in the middle of the world rushing by, Emma became a safe place once again. What she didn't see was the man standing just a few yards away, silently watching from under a tree. Tall, dressed in a dark suit, his expression unreadable, he held his car keys without even noticing. Daniel Montgomery was the kind of man who walked through life untouched by emotion. But that moment, that scene, it stopped him cold. That woman, plain, clearly exhausted, holding a baby, was treating his son with a tenderness he himself hadn't managed to show since losing his wife. The way she spoke, the way she listened, the way she smiled even when she looked like she had nothing to smile about. It disarmed him. Daniel took a step forward, then stopped. Something stirred deep inside, memories he hadn't visited in years. That face. He didn't know why, but something about her felt familiar, like a name on the tip of his tongue. And instinctively, he chose not to interrupt. Not yet. Meanwhile, Emma pulled Lily's jacket tighter and kept scanning the area. She was already wondering if she should go find help or maybe take the boy to a security guard. But something told her the boy's dad would return soon, and he would just, not in the way either of them expected. Their lives were about to turn a corner neither of them saw coming. $3.50 for 20. For 55. Emma counted the coins with both hands while Lily fidgeted in the makeshift stroller, tugging at a frayed string. It wasn't enough, not for both milk and bread. Once again, she'd have to choose one and leave the other for later. But later was already several days overdue. With every step through the streets of Seattle, Emma felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. It wasn't just the grocery bag, it was the guilt, the nagging doubt that she was falling short. Lily's clothes were getting too small, rent was already a week late, and Emma was starting to consider selling her old phone, the one she still used to advertise her embroidery. But if she sold it, how would she get customers? It was a cycle with no way out. What hurt most was knowing she was doing everything right, or at least trying to. She woke up early, took care of Lily, worked when she could, never allowed herself to stop. And still, it felt like the world kept telling her, not good enough. It was like running in place. When she saw other moms at the store laughing with their kids, she felt a deep pang not of envy, but of longing for something she never had. The small humiliations stung more than the big ones. The cashier's glance when she pulled change from her pocket. The sigh from the person behind her in line when she had to put something back. Or worse, the passive-aggressive smile when someone said, "You should have thought twice before having a kid." No one saw how hard Emma fought. How much of herself she gave up every single day. At night, after Lily fell asleep, Emma would lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd ever escape this life of scarcity. She wanted a steady job. Yes, but more than that. She wanted dignity, a routine, the ability to pay bills, without choosing between food and electricity. Above all, she just wanted to stop living with the fear that something small like a rent hike could wipe her out completely. Sometimes, she wrote letters she never sent, letters to Lily's father, to herself, to God. She wrote to release it all, to remind herself there was still something inside her that needed to be heard, but reality always shouted louder. And deep down, Emma feared her efforts would vanish into the silence of a world that doesn't notice women like her. Still, no matter how hard things got, she never let Lily taste that despair. She turned weak coffee into a feast, cold baths into playtime, absence into presence. She did everything she could to shield her daughter from the harshness surrounding them. But on the hardest days, when her whole body ached from exhaustion, she'd just sit and whisper to herself, "Tomorrow will be different," even if she didn't believe it. What Emma didn't know was that tomorrow was closer than she thought. And someone right in that moment was already seeing her with eyes full of recognition and admiration. A lifetime of struggle felt meaningless, until a simple act in the park began to rewrite everything she believed about fate. Emma was never the kind of person who drew attention. She blended into the crowd like someone who'd mastered the art of disappearing in plain sight. But there was something in her eyes, something no one could forget if they looked too long. A mix of tenderness and ancient sorrow. It wasn't just exhaustion, it was resilience, a quiet strength born from being forced to grow up way too soon. She was only 22 when she found out she was pregnant. She thought she was in love, thought it was mutual. Lily's father had promised to stick around, to face it all with her right up until the first ultrasound. After that, he ghosted, blocked her, vanished. Emma was left with black and white sonogram photos and her mother's voice echoing in her head. "You should have been more careful." But it was too late, and all she could do now was face the world alone. She went through the pregnancy quietly, and with shame, no support, no time to prepare. She slept on borrowed mattresses, worked as her belly grew, and learned to mask her pain with polite smiles. "I don't want to bother anyone," she'd say like a mantra. The contraction started while she was hand-sewing a dish towel she planned to sell the next day. Her water broke with no one around, no fanfare, no one waiting. But when Lily was born, the world seemed to shift, if only for a moment. Holding her baby for the first time, Emma made a silent promise. Things would be different. Lily would never feel the kind of abandonment she knew too well. There was something sacred in that solitary birth, like she was rewriting her story with her own hands. From that moment on, motherhood became both her armor and her wound. Her life revolved around that little girl, but she never forgot that she was still a woman, too. A woman who longed to be seen, to be cared for. What made Emma special wasn't what she did, it was how she did it, with care, with intention. When she cared for Lily, it was like she danced, even while dead tired. When she sold her embroidery, she treated each customer like she was handing over a piece of her soul. When she said good morning to a stranger, she meant it. She had that rare thing, presence. She was fully there, even when she felt broken inside. Emma was made of memories and hope. She kept a worn-out notebook filled with quotes she read on buses, in ads, or old second-hand books. She wrote, "You deserve a fresh start. One day, You'll be proud of this. Little sentences that felt like prayers. She dreamed of having a space to call her own, a decent stove, a simple, safe life. She didn't crave luxury, she craved peace, and peace always felt just one step away. But for all her softness, she carried wounds that still throbbed. Her family's rejection, Lily's father's absence, the constant comparison to other moms who seemed to have it all together. Emma felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit anywhere, a woman who gave everything she had and still came up short. It was a silent burden she wore in her smile, and almost no one noticed. Almost, until that day in the park. One simple act comforting a child became a bridge. And in that moment, without even knowing it, Emma finally began to be truly seen by someone whose path had crossed hers long ago, and who was now about to reconnect with her. Out of love, out of fate, or maybe from a pain they both carried. Emma had learned how to make magic out of almost nothing. A single bag of rice became lunch, dinner, and hope for the next day. Whenever she had a few coins left, she bought soap to wash clothes, hers, Lily's, and even her clients', in the kitchen sink. It was exhausting, but also her way of holding on to dignity. When she felt worn down, she'd think of Lily trying to slip on her tiny shoes by herself, and strength would return as if summoned from somewhere deep inside. The bills were a constant battle: past due water, ration gas, and electricity, always one notice away from being shut off. Emma scribbled numbers on loose sheets of paper with a pen that kept running out of ink, trying to organize the chaos. Sometimes she managed to pay part of a bill, other times she had to negotiate. She'd learned to speak firmly on the phone, to ask with respect, but inside, every call was a fight with her pride. Each "sorry, there's nothing we can do" made the ground disappear beneath her feet for a second. Lily's stroller was always riding on a flat tire. Emma patched it with tape, wire, whatever she had. Every time they made their way through the city, she silently prayed it wouldn't break down for good. Once, she pushed it with Lily in her arms for more than 10 blocks. When she finally reached the drop-off spot for her embroidered dish towels, she smiled like nothing had happened. The customer didn't even notice, and maybe that was Emma's greatest skill, hiding pain without ever losing her kindness. Emotionally, the judgment stung more than any unpaid bill. Random comments at the grocery store, side eyes on the bus, tone-deaf remarks from people she used to know. One day, a former classmate said, "Wow, I thought you were gonna be somebody." Emma smiled, but the words echoed for days. Because deep down, she knew she was somebody. Someone building a home with her bare hands. It just wasn't the kind of success the world liked to clap for. Nights were the cruelest. After Lily fell asleep and the silence set in, loneliness crept in like a shadow. There was no one to share decisions with, no one to vent her fears to, no shoulder to rest her head on, just the cold certainty that it would all start over again the next day. That's when Emma let herself feel. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she wrote, sometimes she just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time she felt loved. And still, she worked hard to keep things light for Lily. Bath time became playtime. Bedtime came with made-up stories. She'd set up indoor picnics with cookies and watered-down juice. She created beauty where life offered only gray, not out of naivety, but out of choice. Because she wanted Lily to grow up knowing that love and joy don't depend on money. They come from intention. Every tiny gesture was a quiet victory. Every load of laundry, every coin saved, every meal made with care. No one noticed, no one clapped, but Emma knew the worth of her struggle. She knew that holding on through scarcity was its own kind of resistance, and no matter how much the world tried to make her feel small, she carried one unshakable promise inside her, that her daughter would not inherit the same pain. What Emma couldn't have imagined was that in the middle of all this chaos, she was about to find something she wasn't even looking for, someone who saw her differently, someone who had once been part of her past, even if she didn't remember. And he was about to offer her more than just help, he was about to offer her a second chance. Sorry, the position's already been filled. The words, spoken for the third time that morning, hit harder than Emma cared to admit. With Lily in her arms and a resume in her hand, she just smiled, thanked the manager, and left. He hadn't even looked her in the eye. The cake shop had seemed promising, but once again, there was someone more available, someone without. A small child, on the way back, her face burned with shame and disappointment. She had spent the night before sewing dish towels, stitching little hearts with the last bit of thread she had left. She thought about selling them at the park, setting up a small stand. But the city had already banned street vendors from that area. One day I'll open my own shop, she whispered to herself as she pushed the stroller down the hill. One of the wheels let out an awful squeak, but Emma barely noticed any more. Even without luck from job interviews, she decided to stop by the local nonprofit. She'd heard they were offering free skills training courses. Sewing, cooking, professional cleaning. She asked hopefully. The woman at the desk nodded, but told her the next round of classes wouldn't start until next month. Emma thanked her anyway and tucked the flyer into her pocket. She'd learned to never leave a place empty-handed even if all she carried was hope. The next day, she posted online, looking for work. I clean houses, take care of kids, cook, good references, please share. She got 4 likes and 1 message from a man she immediately blocked. It was always like that. She tried to use the internet as a bridge, but all she found were cliffs. Still, she didn't give up. Giving up was a luxury she couldn't afford. One of the hardest moments came when she walked through the door with 5 reais in her pocket and had to choose bread or soap. Soap won. We'll turn dinner into snack time, right, baby? She said with a smile. Sometimes she hated herself for making jokes out of their lack, for turning survival into a game. But she knew her daughter needed stability, even if everything was falling apart inside. That week, Emma also tried to sell a few second-hand kids' clothes in a local online group. She washed them, ironed them, took nice photos, but not one piece sold. Maybe it was the algorithm. Maybe no one was interested. Maybe life was just testing her limits again. She stared at her phone screen for a long while before turning it off and whispering to herself, "Tomorrow, I'll try something else." And it was on that exact tomorrow that she went back to the park, not as a plan but on instinct. She just wanted to take Lily for a walk, to break the routine. Her last sale had been a bust, and fresh air felt like a way to clear her head. But as she approached that same bench where she'd met the crying boy days earlier, she felt something shift in the air. Emma didn't know it yet, but someone was waiting for her. Someone who remembered her face. Someone with means, resources, but more importantly, someone with eyes trained to recognize value where others only saw weakness. And right there, in the most unassuming of moments, her story began to change. Daniel walked over slowly. The park was still quiet that morning, and he watched from a distance, like someone trying to solve a mystery. Emma was sitting on the same bench as before, offering a cookie to Lily, her hair tied back, her shirt plain, her eyes calm despite the invisible chaos. He hesitated. There was something oddly familiar about her. It wasn't just that moment from the other day. It was the way she moved, like their paths had crossed before. "Hi, sorry to bother you. I'm the father of the boy from that day." Emma looked up slowly, surprised. "Oh, of course. Is he okay?" "Yeah, he's doing fine, Jake. He talked about you for days. Said you were kind. Said your daughter smiles a lot. I just wanted to say thank you." Emma gave a shy smile. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same, but Daniel knew, right then, that wasn't true. Not everyone would have done what she did, and she wasn't just anyone. The conversation was brief, but something lingered in the air. A strange kind of comfort, like recognizing someone from a dream you'd long forgotten. When she mentioned her full name, Emma Bailey, Daniel's face went pale. It sounded too familiar. That night, he went digging through old boxes in his parents' basement. Childhood memories, an elementary school on the outskirts of town, faded photos, and there she was, Emma, the girl who used to sit beside him, stick stickers in her notebooks, and share her lunch when he forgot his. The next day, he went back to the park. Emma was there again, as if fate was quietly conspiring for them. He told her about their past. She took a minute to believe it. "You're Danny Montgomery." Her eyes lit up in shock. It was like a hole in time had just closed. Suddenly, she wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen, recognized, and more than that remembered fondly by someone the whole world listened to. But who, now, was speaking just to her? Daniel, on his side, realized how much he missed being looked at without expectation. Emma had no idea who he had become, and even after finding out, she still treated him with simple kindness. That disarmed him. He was used to galas and handshakes behind closed deals. But there, in conversations about childhood and motherhood, he found something new: peace. Over the next few days, they met more often. Daniel brought toys for Jake and Lily. Emma, shyly, offered cornbread and childhood stories. They laughed, remembered old classmates, playground games, childhood secrets, and without even realizing it, they began rebuilding a bridge, something stronger than time, something neither abandonment nor pain had managed to destroy. One morning, Daniel asked, "Are you looking for work?" Emma nodded, surprised. "Always, but it's hard." With a little one, he looked down at his shoes for a moment, then met her eyes. "There's an opening at my company. It's an entry-level position, but it's steady, training included. Would you be interested?" Emma hesitated. For a second, fear crept in. She didn't want charity. But his tone was different. It wasn't pity. It was respect. It was an invitation. She said yes. And in that moment, the connection between them deepened. It wasn't just a job offer, it was a sign, a new beginning. And for both of them, the first spark of something greater, a reunion not just between two people, but between long-lost versions of themselves. By her third week at work, Emma began to feel something she hadn't felt in ages: stability. It wasn't wealth, but it was peace. She woke up early, dropped Lily off with a trusted neighbor, and headed to Daniel's company, where she learned with quiet determination. She was doing well. She'd received praise, smiles, even you've got a future here from her supervisor. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe it was possible, but that peace didn't last. That Friday, when she picked Lily up early, the neighbor greeted her at the door with worrying in her eyes. A social worker came by. "Someone reported that you're out too much and leave your daughter with strangers." Emma froze. Her stomach dropped. What do you mean? I'm just trying to work." She said she'd be back. Might open a case. Emma's hands trembled. It wasn't just unfair. It was cruel. She was trying, giving it everything she had, and now, this. That night, Emma didn't sleep. She watched Lily breathe, watched her tiny hands move in her dreams. The fear came roaring back. What if they took her away? What if everything crumbled again? The ghost of instability returned with sharp claws. She thought about quitting, about running, but where would she go? How would she start over? For the first time, she didn't want to disappear, she wanted to fight. The next morning, she arrived at work with swollen eyes. Daniel noticed. Did something happen? She hesitated. She didn't want to drag him into it, but the pain spilled over. "They almost took my daughter away, just because. I'm trying to be better, because I'm working, because I'm a single mom." Daniel felt the weight of her words. He didn't say much, but he knew what needed to be done. At the end of the day, he called her into his office. "Emma, I can help you with this. I've got connections, lawyers, people who can make sure Lily stays with you. But only if you'll let me." She took a deep breath. Her pride flared up, but her fear was louder. I don't want to depend on anyone. It's not dependence. It's partnership. It's protection. You'd do the same for me if the roles were reversed. His words slipped past defenses she thought were impenetrable. She nodded silently. In the days that followed, Daniel helped quietly, without drawing attention, and Emma, still shaken, began to rebuild her trust. But something had shifted inside her. Now she knew how fragile security could be, how one anonymous complaint could bring the whole house of cards down. It made her more alert, more driven, and closer to Daniel. That pain brought them together, in a deeper way, and it was through that process that Emma stopped seeing him as a savior. She started seeing him as a man who'd known loss too. A man who'd also been at the bottom, and Daniel, in turn, saw more than resilience in Emma. He saw truth. He saw bravery. He saw the girl who once shared her stickers with him in school and now, the woman sharing herself, scars and all, in the most beautiful way, and without realizing it. The fall had made her stronger. The breaking point had brought clarity. Emma was no longer just surviving, she was becoming a woman in motion, and what came next would change everything once again. Emma returned to work on Monday with a different posture, her head held high, her shoulders firm. The sting from the social worker's visit still lingered, but something inside her had shifted. Now she knew what she was capable of. She couldn't control everything, but she could keep moving. She had already survived worse, and now she wasn't alone anymore, and that, in itself, was a win. She started standing out in the administrative tasks, fast, focused, organized. When the department manager went on vacation, Daniel temporarily promoted her to oversee the team's daily operations. At first, she doubted herself, but day by day, her confidence grew. Lily kept thriving, healthy and full of joy, and Emma even started putting together a tiny emergency fund. 10, 20, 50 reais a week. It wasn't much, but it was hers. For the first time, she could actually picture a future. On weekends, she started taking Lily to the park more often, the same one where she had met Jake. Now the four of them met up naturally. The kids played together, and Daniel slowly began showing a side no one at the company ever saw. He laughed freely, shared silly childhood stories, and learned from Emma how to stretch liquid soap. It was a beautiful exchange of worlds, and Emma, for the first time, felt like she had something to offer beyond just gratitude. One afternoon, as she folded some dish towels she still made from time to sell, Emma caught her reflection in the mirror and truly saw herself. She wasn't that scared girl carrying shame anymore. She was a woman, a mother, a professional, a whole person. Still tired, still fighting, but now with support, with choices. She smiled. And it wasn't just any smile, it was one of belonging. Daniel admired her more with each passing day. Not out of pity, but because of her quiet strength, her simple wisdom, the genuine warmth she carried. He said it in subtle ways, in the coffee he'd leave on her desk, in meetings where he asked for her opinion first. But one night, in a moment of mutual courage, he told her, "You've changed a lot in me, Emma. You reminded me who I was before everything became just numbers." She didn't reply. She simply held his hand for a few long seconds. That was enough. Her bond with Jake had also deepened. The boy adored Emma and called Lily my heart sister. Emma, who never had close siblings, was deeply touched by that. She realized kids often understand what adults overcomplicate, that real connections are built on simple gestures, not last names. Emma had also started studying at night, an online tech course in business administration. Daniel encouraged her, but she was the one who made it happen. She slept less, studied during lunch breaks, took exams after putting Lily to bed. She was more exhausted than ever, but full of purpose. For the first time, she could say out loud, "I'm proud of myself." And it was through that journey filled with small but steady steps that Emma understood overcoming in about coming out untouched. It's about moving forward, even when wounded, with scars, with history. And now, more than ever, she was ready for whatever else life had in store. Because what came next would change everything. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Work was going well, her routine with Lily was stable, and her connection with Daniel was growing deeper each day, even if neither of them had put that into words yet. But fate, always watching, had a twist of its own, and it came from somewhere Emma least expected, an old box tucked away in a forgotten corner of Daniel's parents' house. It was a cloudy Sunday when Daniel brought Emma and the kids over for lunch at his mom's place. Jake loved playing in the backyard, and Lily, with her still clumsy little steps, followed him like he was her big brother. While the kids played in the garden, Daniel decided to show Emma some old childhood photos. There are some funny memories in here. I thought you might like to see them. Emma laughed, curious, and followed him. Among the dusty photo albums was a blue box with faded tape on the sides. Daniel opened it carefully. Inside were childhood drawings, letters, and one yellowed envelope with the name Emma be scribbled on it in shaky handwriting. He furrowed his brow. Emma be await ... That's your name. She took the envelope in her hands, her heart speeding up. She opened it and read a childish note. You're my best friend. One day, we'll meet again. Danny, the silence that followed was heavy. Emma blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Is this real? Daniel shook his head, still in shock. You're the Emma, the one who stood up for me when they made fun of my braces at school. She covered her mouth. Confused childhood memories came rushing back. Shared lunches, afternoons on the swing, whispered secrets in the school hallway. It all made sense. They had been best friends, and life had pulled them apart until now. What once seemed like coincidence now felt like destiny. But with that rush of emotion also came a question. Why did we lose touch? What happened? After, Daniel told her about the sudden move, his parents relocating to a new city, how he had been pulled away from everything familiar. I tried to find you once, but I couldn't remember your last name. She gave a sad smile. We moved too, changed houses, everything. It was a lot to forget. That moment changed everything. They were no longer just two people crossing paths. They were two stories that had once started together, and now they were reconnecting, older, more bruised, but still carrying that same spark from back then. It was like the universe had paused their story until they were both ready to continue it. Emma went home that night with something inside her finally clicking into place. A missing piece had been found, and Daniel couldn't sleep. Because to him, that discovery wasn't the end of a mystery, it was the beginning of something much bigger, something he no longer wanted to delay. The childhood reunion had rekindled something deep inside them, memories, old longings, the warmth of a connection they had forgotten. But instead of making things easier, it brought old insecurities to the surface. Emma began pulling away. Without even realizing it, she started turning down invitations, replying to messages with less enthusiasm. Not because she didn't feel something, because she felt too much. And that scared her. One night, Daniel waited for her outside the office. His car was parked across the street. When she saw him, she tried to play off her surprise. You waiting for me? I guess I am. Or maybe I'm just following you. I don't even know anymore. She laughed, but her eyes looked tired. Are you okay, Emma? She hesitated, then let the words slip out in a breath. I don't know if I can do this, Daniel. You have everything, and I'm just trying not to drown. Daniel took a deep breath. It wasn't the first time someone had pulled away thinking he was too much, but with Emma, it was different. You see me as someone unreachable, but the truth is, I'm just trying not to drown too. She looked at him, surprised. I lost the woman I loved, Emma. I was widowed with a small child. I buried myself in work. And only now I realize that being alive isn't the same as living. The silence between them said more than any argument. Emma looked down, The urge to run was strong, but the urge to stay was stronger. I don't want to be rescued, Daniel. I don't want to be the inspiring story of the CEO who helped the poor girl, and I don't want to save anyone. I want to walk beside someone, to mess up together, learn together, and what if it all goes wrong? Then we try again. His words touched a place deep inside her, a place no one had touched since she was left alone during her pregnancy. Still, she needed to test him. And what if one day I'm not enough for you? Emma, you already are more than enough. You just don't see it yet. And there, standing on cold asphalt under streetlights and distant horns, Emma faced her biggest fear, being loved without having to shrink herself. And Daniel faced his, loving again with no guarantees. They stood at the emotional edge between their past and future, and even trembling, they took the step. That night, they sat quietly together on Emma's couch. Jake and Lily slept in the other room. There were no big declarations, no movie scene kisses, just their hands gently intertwined, and a silence full of meaning. A new chapter began that night, not with promises, but with presence. Time passed slowly and exactly as it needed to. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but a steady build. Emma grew into her life. She took on a new role at work with more responsibility. She no longer apologized for taking up space, no longer shrank in meetings. When she spoke, people listened, and for someone who had spent years trying to stay invisible just to survive, that was a quiet revolution. Lily started going to a small community preschool. Emma cried more than her daughter on the first day. It felt like a piece of her was walking away, to bloom. Lily came home full of stories, colorful drawings, and new words. And Emma realized that even through fear, she had done something right. She was raising a little girl who felt safe, loved, and free. Daniel, on the other hand, realized the beauty of simple things. He started skipping late meetings to pick Jake up from school. He took Emma and Lily to the park on Sundays, made pancakes on Saturdays, learned to cook garlic rice the way she liked it. His house, once cold and bare, now smelled like real food, echoed with laughter, and had crayon drawings taped to the walls. Their love wasn't a firework, it was an ember. Fresh brewed coffee, a shared blanket, glances exchanged. In the middle of chaos, Emma still had tough days, still doubted herself. But now, there was someone to remind her, and the most beautiful part, she had started reminding herself. She could look in the mirror and see a whole woman, not a broken one. Someone who had been hurt, yes, but had turned her pain into power. They talked often about the past, their almost forgotten childhood, the gaps they carried inside. And little by little, those empty spaces started to fill not with each other, but beside each other. There was respect, there was listening, and there was love, the quiet, mature kind, that doesn't shout, but stays. One night, as she lay in bed, Emma looked at Lily sleeping peacefully, then at Daniel, already drifting off. Her heart felt light. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about what was missing, but what was already there. She didn't need to run anymore. Survival had given way to living. And that was everything. She still embroidered on weekends, but now for joy. And Daniel was still a CEO, but he no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Together, they created a new kind of love, without saviors, without victims, just human beings who found each other along the way, recognized each other's scars, and chose to walk forward together. Emma was no longer just the poor girl with a baby in her arms. She was a woman who had weathered storms and discovered what truly mattered. And Daniel wasn't just the successful CEO. He was a man who had lost, fallen, and learned how to love. Again, together, they found what the world is always chasing: belonging. It was an ordinary afternoon when Emma received a box in the mail. No return address, no note. Inside, just an old photo, two kids sitting on a school bench, smiling at each other, on the back, in shaky, childlike handwriting. It read, "Promise you'll remember me." She held the photo for a long time, her heart tight with a tenderness too deep to describe. She took it to Daniel, who smiled as he saw it. "I thought that memory was lost." Emma looked him in the eyes and said, "We thought we were lost too, but there they were, together, again, not by chance this time but by choice." That night, while Lily slept and Jake watched a movie on the living room floor, Emma picked up her phone and started typing. Not a post, not a message for anyone in particular. Just a sentence she needed to hear, and maybe the world did too. You can lose everything and still find your way back. Sometimes, the love you're searching for comes from the same place where your pain began. Life never handed Emma easy endings, but it gave her honest paths. Every fall became part of her foundation. Every absence shaped her presence. And every no she heard made her stronger for the yes she eventually gave herself, because, in the end, the most powerful reunion wasn't with Daniel. It was with the woman she had once lost and who now returned more true than ever. That night, Daniel looked at her and whispered, "You know what's crazy? It all started with a park bench." Emma laughed. "No, it started when we chose not to look away from each other's pain. Sometimes, fate doesn't get the timing wrong, it just waits. Sometimes, love comes back in a different form, a new name, but the same soul. And sometimes, everything you need is right there, on the other side of a simple act." Did this story touch you? Leave a comment below and tell us where you're from. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories like this one.